All right. Thank you for coming today. I hope you enjoyed the film. I think it's pretty good. I'm going to introduce our panelists and then Lindsay, Hutton as well. And then we're going to get started on the panel discussion. And of course, questions from the audience are also welcome. However, if Lindsay wants to moderate that, it's up to her. All right. So to my immediate left is William Allred, PhD. He is the Associate Director of Technology at the University of Arkansas Sam M. Walton College of Business and an adjunct instructor here at NWACC. He received his PhD in English from the University of Arkansas in 2011. His doctoral dissertation dealt with the works of Warren Ellis, primarily planetary, transmetropolitan, Stormwatch, The Authority, global frequency, ocean, and orbiter. Comics, graphic novels have always been a passion of his. He's the writer of Diary of Night from Bloodfire Comics and has contributed an essay on comics to blue-collar pop culture from NASCAR to Jersey Shore, and served as a contributing editor to the Encyclopedia of Comic Books and Graphic Novels. He's also served on the board of directors of the Grand Comics database from 2000 to 2011. This fall, he is teaching a class called Comics and Graphic Novels, English 2413. And here's a flyer. There are about 20 of them on that table if you're interested in it. There's also a sign-up sheet to put your email on there if you want to hear from him about the class more in depth. And we have that on the table over there. Third person over, I'm going alphabetically. Joseph Askins, MLIS, is a technical services librarian at NWACC's Pauline Whitaker Library. He received his master's degree in library and information science from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and a bachelor's degree in magazine journalism from the University of Missouri. He says on a personal level, his history with comics goes back to 1983 when his grandfather gave him the Marvel Comics adaptation of Return of the Jedi for his 3rd birthday. As a graduate student, one of the things he studied was the development of comic book collections in public and academic libraries. He has contributed interviews with creators including Gene Colan and Dick Giordano to Comic Foundry magazine. Our student representative on the panel is Bethany Hollis at our end. She's a full-time student here at NWACC. While she has currently not chosen a major, she has taken classes in gender studies, science fiction, world literature, and art history. She has a strong interest in the arts and humanities, particularly writing, literature, film, history, philosophy, as well as political science and cultural studies. She was a fan of Saturday morning superhero cartoons as a child and is now a fan of superhero films. Because of her enthusiasm for genre fiction, be it film, television, or literature, she is interested in ways popular culture and media relate to social issues such as gender studies. She was also the Golden Eagle Award winner in October 2013 here at NWACC. Finally on our panel, Susan Marren, Dr. Susan Marren, PhD. She's an associate professor of English specializing in modern American literature and gender studies at the University of Arkansas, Fayetteville. She was director of the gender studies program at the university for 10 years until about 2012. She teaches classes in feminist theory, race and gender issues in literature, and African American literature and modernism. And finally, to my right, Dr. Lindsay Hutton was raised in a tiny town in southwest Missouri by a Wonder Woman, she says. After high school, she left the tiny town inspired by her Wonder Woman mother to see the world and to get an education. She studied English and French at the College of the Ozarks, where she received her BA. After a year abroad teaching English, she continued to study writing at the University of Southern Mississippi. With an MA in fiction writing, Lindsay went to Texas Tech University to pursue a PhD in creative nonfiction. She finished this degree in spring of 2011. She now works in the English department of NWACC, teaching writing classes. She speaks with her mother, the Wonder Woman in her life, every few days. And she will be our moderator, but one more thing here. We have another flyer up there about a gender studies, called Introduction to Gender Studies Honors class in the fall as well. There are flyers up there and a sign-up sheet for more information for that class. It's an honors class. And Megan Bollander's in our audience. She teaches that class. You're gonna wave your hand. If you want to go up and talk directly to her, that works too. So we'll get started.
Thanks everybody for staying. I thought that we would start off, we're going to jump, we have a whole list of questions, but for our panelists, I was thinking we would start with question 9. And the question, for the benefit of you in the audience, is this. The term hero is used in many different contexts today. What do you feel are the characteristics of a hero, and who are your heroes? And we want to take audience questions as we go, so fine with the panelists. If you have any questions for the panelists, if you would just raise your hand and we'll recognize you, and it can be an interactive discussion. Okay. So, anybody want to leap in to start?
You know, I don't really know who I would say my heroes are. I don't really think about people in that kind of way. It's like idols and heroes. So kind of a cop out on that one, but it's like a big commitment. It would be a big commitment to me to call somebody a hero.
Whoever turns on the microphone fastest to talk.
Well, one of the things that the points they made in the film is that anybody can be a hero, whoever steps up and does what needs to be done. So I was thinking about, when I was looking at this question earlier, about when the Representative Gabby Giffords was shot, and one of her staff members, do you remember that a couple of years ago, had been in Arizona, thank you. Anyway, one of her staff members stepped up and saved her, really. Administered first aid, and everyone kept asking him, "Are you a hero?" And people in that situation, people always say, "I'm not, no, I'm not a hero. I'm just a regular person." And one of the things that I thought was so touching about this film was that little girl saying, "Well, everyone can be anyone can be a hero." So, and it just seems like if you're in that moment able and willing to step up and do the thing that will salvage the situation.
Well, I look at hero as more of a literary construct, more classical. It was the step between them. They were demigods. They were the step between man and gods. And I think one of the failures I see is we try to make superheroes, which are better than normal humans. We try to bring them back down so that they're normal people. They have they're better than us. They're something that we should aspire to. And I think when you try to bring too much realism to that, you just get a big old mess. But that's kind of how I see it. It's more of a literary construct coming from the classics. People can be heroic, but true heroes, I think, are rare.
I don't know if I have a whole lot to add aside from that. I really had a problem. I was kind of disappointed in myself reading this about who are your heroes, and I don't think that I spent enough time really even acknowledging to myself the people in my life who I look up to a whole lot. I think it ends up being just family and friends, but the things that I think about when I think about heroism are just not only the idea of acting selflessly, but also providing an example. I don't think a person goes out to become a hero. I think they're perceived as heroes by other people. The only other thing that really came to mind for all you genre fans out there, since Game of Thrones is back on TV, I've been going back and reading the first book, and there's a line early on where a small child's asking his father about the person both be courageous and have fear at the same time, and his father says that actually that's one of the defining characteristics of being a courageous person, that you're acting in the face of that kind of fear and adversity. So I suppose I look at people who are doing things that must, are acting in a way that must be almost terrifying for them to live on that edge and to do what they feel needs to be done, and putting in maybe a great risk to themselves. So that's all I have.
Can I add one thing? I was thinking that when you brought up, of course, the literature, when I took my first women's studies class, it was a class on 20th century women novelists, I think. And I remember the first day, the professor standing up and saying, putting the word hero on the board, and then heroine. And she made the point that there aren't female heroes in literature. And the heroine, what's supposed to be the equivalent, is the one who marries the hero. Like, she doesn't have herself heroic qualities. So it's problematic from that standpoint to use the word hero. We just blow through that and talk about what we think the qualities of a hero are, and half the people in the film said their mother was their hero. But there's a little bit of a gender problem when we talk about it. Use the language of literary criticism. and we use that word hero because it sort of by definition excludes women. You have to make an extra effort to include women or to find female heroes, or you can find heroic characters, maybe, female characters in literature, but they're not usually recognized as the hero. So there's that too.
Mind if I?
Oh, please.
George Lucas has pretty much put his stamp on the heroic journey. You know, Joseph Campbell's Hero with 1,000 Faces, the Mythic Image. When Campbell discusses that, and I'm trying to remember, it's a long time since I've read those books, I don't think he is gender biased when he discusses, you know, the hero does this, the hero does, it's not he does this or she does this, it's the hero does this. Is that fair to say? I mean, I think he's doing comparative mythology is what he's doing. So that's kind of where I'm coming at it from, is that point. But with Star Wars, how many women are in the Star Wars universe? 2, okay? Princess Leia and Aunt Beirut, right? I'm counting just the first movie, okay?
Who's the second one?
Aunt Beirut, the mother figure. Right, sorry. I mean, if you look at how big an impact those movies have had on popular culture, and there's so little gender representation. It's a story about guys for guys, or actually teenage boys, I would say. But I don't know if the heroic myth now is, how can I say this, has been completely subsumed by it's just for guys at this point. I mean, it's just a man thing. It's for boys. That story. And I don't know. What do you think? You're an expert. I teach
not on the
English.
heroic myth. Oh, I don't exactly know. I mean, it sounds like you might be saying that our patriarchal popular culture has made it more difficult to see female heroism, right? And
I think so.
to recognize women as heroes. Yeah, which I think is part of the point of the film. And I would agree with you there. It's been probably longer for me since I've read Joseph Campbell than for you. And I don't remember what his examples were exactly. But the kinds of qualities that the hero has are qualities that tend to be gendered masculine in our culture. So women have to step out of their prescribed gender roles. I mean, obviously that's what's happening when, in World War II, yeah, we need you in the factory. Oh wait, go back to the kitchen after the war and be the mom and father knows best, right? So, I mean, I think I agree with you that that's been, I don't know why that happens exactly.
3% of women in popular culture.
Yeah, 3% of women making decisions in the movie industry or whatever it was. Yeah, I didn't mean to go on.
No, that's fine. I was going to ask Bethany, as a student in literature and interested in here in some ways in popular culture and in superheroes and their presentations now, I wondered if you wanted to respond to any things that Susan and anything have been saying.
Well, I agree that there are not a lot of women in those types of roles. I think that people are accepting generally of the idea that women can occupy the heroic role in a film, but the fact that there are so few makes it seem like an anomaly, and so it's not common. I think people feel that it's, at this point, people generally feel that it's possible, but it's rare.
Joe, do you want to weigh?
The one thing that I was thinking about as you were talking is not only that the way that we see that these heroines are having to adopt masculine features and traits, is also that I think all too often in comics what we find are that the women superheroes are just mere kind of variations on the existing male character. So that you have Batgirl and Batwoman, you have all sorts of examples where they're kind of relegated to a sidekick or a carbon copy of a male character. And you know, I do think that they make a good argument in this film that Wonder Woman obviously emerged from a golden age when Superman was popular and everybody was kind of scrambling to put out their own variation on that character. But that perhaps Wonder Woman was not just, she wasn't Supergirl, right? She had her own kind of story that was independent of all of those characters. And I still think today we don't see enough female characters that in the comics that aren't just kind of adopting the same gimmick that has already been out there and used by a male character already.
Okay, and something I was thinking of listening to you all talk, it seems like this question of, well, why then? Why? If we are seeing so few women in these roles, this comes back to a question that you all asked there. Why do you think that women are so often portrayed in the mass media as sexualized or as having only romantic history? So not being the mythic hero, basically, right? Generally, they're portrayed as accessories to men. Well, why? If men constitute the majority of writers and producers of mass media, what does this say about them?
Well, I think I see it from two ways. I put on the writer hat, and I think it's a failure of imagination. I really think it's probably something that a lot of male writers probably struggle with. But also looking at it from the academic side, it's a systemic problem. It's not, I think you make a point that it's visual media where we see this. And I don't know current novels, I'm not as up on that, but it seems to me that this is much more pronounced problem in the visual media than it is in our other forms of media. Would that be fair to say?
I think you could also make the argument of people trying to make money and trying to sell and trying to have an advantage over somebody else. And I think one guy said that back in the 90s, DC made money by selling icons, Marvel made money by selling characters, and what was the other one? Image made money by selling cheesecake. And this was in an age before the internet was widespread. So, you know, from a guy just trying to make money, who cares what's actually in the book as long as it sells? Well, who reads comics? Young boys, you know, 13, 14, 15-year-olds. What do they like to see? Hot women. So let's make books full of hot women and they'll fly off the covers. Who cares what's in it? So I think maybe that's how it kind of got started, and it hasn't quite grown out.
Response?
It seems like a chicken and egg problem. I don't think, I mean, is it that I agree with you, right? That the bottom line is people are trying to make money. But I also think, you know, what are we offering? I mean, what is this industry offering to girls? Or, I mean, really, what is it offering to my sons? I'm not sure that I mean, they're always hearing me critically evaluate media from this standpoint. So, but, you know, I think, as you said, it's a failure of imagination. I mean, this very year, I almost never see the Oscars, but I actually saw it this year, and I didn't see any movies, but I did see, I think it was Cate Blanchett who won for Best Actress, is that right? Is that who it was? For Blue Jasmine? Thank you. And she said, hello, people can make money when a woman is the, you know, star of the film, and it's not about her relationship with men or whatever. So this is still a problem, and she's still talking about it. And what I think what she's suggesting is, try it. Try something different and see if you get a different audience or more, you know, if people will buy them. I don't know, but I mean, it seems like if we give everybody a steady diet of Wonder Bread, then they're going to think that's what they want.
I do think that her comments have proven to bear out. That there was a report just the other day in which some scholars, just using something as simple as the Bechdel test, which maybe we can get into in a second, analyzed just box office returns over the last few years, looking at a number of movies that had, Bechdel test, if you're not aware of it, is just a simple analysis of whether a story features, more than one female character having a conversation with another character about something other than a man. And that's obviously a very basic test, but it's amazing how many movies and books and comic books fail that test. And looking at the box office returns per viewer for movies that passed the Bechdel test actually were higher than returns for movies that did not. And sometimes you have to have numbers before you can get through to executives, and hopefully the more that people are able to show that no, this is real, women, movies with strong women characters are popular, that we will see more.
And to speak to your comment a little bit more, when comics first started, they were truly a mass medium. You would get, and I'm probably just considering making these numbers up, and we can go look them up later, okay? But you would probably have a comic that would be read 7 or 8 times, passed through from adults to children. Everybody was reading comics. The audience for comics was everyone. There were the EC comics that the code went after. Those were really written for adults at that point, or closer to adults. But with the advent of the code, I really think, and I think Kurt Busiek, the writer of Astro City, Avengers, and several other things, he said that superhero fans saved comics in the 70s by creating the direct market. Well, okay, then if those are the people that saved us, they're the ones that are buying what we're putting out. We're going to keep giving them what they want. And all the other genres, comics used to have, crime, romance, drama, you name it. We had every genre out there. We have superheroes. A medium is not for a particular demographic. A medium is a medium. And the fact that, it's like saying TV's for 17 to 29-year-old males. Movies are only for 18 to 34-year-old female. The medium is there. Now, the message that is in this medium is kind of strangled, I think, but there's real power in comics, words and pictures together. Will Eisner, and I still can't, this still weirds me out, but Will Eisner did comics for the U.S. military, showing how to do proper procedures for cleaning guns, for Jeep maintenance, for things like this, because it was the most efficient way to tell that story. Here's how you do it: show and tell. And I think the 80s were a bad time, but comics are gradually starting to get more genres now. There are comics for kids, there are comics for adults, there are comics for pretty much anything that you want, but you have to find them in a sea of superheroes.
Okay. Did you have Bethany? Did you want to?
I agree with what you were saying, that, and like the lady said in the film, it's a cop-out to say that people aren't going to watch films that don't, because they star women. And I thought about Kate Blanchett as well when I read this question. And at the Oscars this year, she talked about Blue Jasmine, there's Gravity, there's Our Association. There were a number of films that were driven by women leads. And I really believe that it would change if there were more women making films, more women in the creative process, because whether or not it's consciously done by the men who are making the media, the fact is that, and whether or not you believe gender is different biologically or culturally, the fact is that in our culture there is a difference. We're raised to think of our identity differently based on our gender, so we have a different experience. And there's a kind of collective experience that comes with your gender identity, and if there's nobody there to make media that reflects that, then the people who are there, they don't have that experience, so they aren't able to really reflect that experience.
Okay, it seems like a good place to move into this next question. We're talking about how the different mediums and different kinds of characters that appear in those mediums. So we have strong women, not as many, right? They do appear, but how do we respond to them? And the question is this: are powerful women at a disadvantage in society? If so, why are they? What are some of the ways that people, both men and women, describe and react to strong women figures? So they're there, but how do people respond to them?
There was and I don't know, some of you guys might have heard that on Equal Pay Day, which was about a week ago, there was an excruciating story on NPR about how men and women have to negotiate differently for raises at their jobs. Some of you hear that? And it was really difficult to listen to because it required women to contort themselves and to do all kinds of play this sort of role of the compliant, not too demanding woman in order to demand a raise to which they are entirely entitled. And you know, your brother doesn't have to do that, or your husband or your coworker who's a guy. And this was, you know, in business school it's being taught, women are, you know, being taught that they have to go through this differently. And I think this has to do with what Bethany was saying, that we're socialized to think about men and women differently and to think of ourselves differently depending on our gender. Of course, it's not as simple as that. But I think, you know, I always have this mixed feeling, and when I hear something like that, it's probably good that women are going into business, are being told these things, told that they have to play this game. On the other hand, they shouldn't have to play this game. So strong women who stand up for themselves, like that little girl, you know, hopes to become, are, you know, punished for it in our society. That's extremely depressing, but it seems to be true. So I don't know if you guys want to.
Well, I think too that men would deal with that strong woman as an outlier and not see her as a representative of all women. She's different. She's scary, you know. And I don't know. I don't know how we can change that.
I do. Did you want to say that?
No, I just want to say I do.
Would you like to tell us how? Would you know?
Sign up for Intro to Gender Studies.
Well, that's one. Take gender studies courses. Along the lines of what Bethany was saying, and I want to do a public shout out to her articulate answers, and she is a fascinating and brilliant student. So I'm just proud to know her. But her answer about gender identity, there needs to be more gender equality in the production. And she's saying the creative process, but I'm actually meaning the nuts and bolts of production in the boardrooms, making the decisions where the money is, because until that system changes, until the production system changes, that's where women's identity needs to be represented.
Stephanie?
My husband and I were just talking about this, I think, this past weekend. I've been wanting a Wonder Woman film for my entire life. And I know exactly who should play her, but they didn't pick her for the next movie. They picked a woman named Gal Gadot, who's from the Fast and Furious franchise of 19 movies or whatever there are. And he told me that he follows all the forums, and I don't follow the same forums he does about film, the comic book industry and all that. And I want Gina Carano, who played in Haywire. I don't know if anybody saw that, but she's a mixed martial artist fighter in real life, and she did her own stunts. But she's not traditionally feminine, but I think she'd be perfect for Wonder Woman. And in the forums, they're talking about the banter is that the executives wanted someone who wasn't as threatening to a male audience as the real MMA fighter, who could actually do her own stunts as Wonder Woman. And that's the most recent anecdote we had, so she's perfect for it. I mean, feel free to look her up. I mean, she's born to do it. But they picked a traditionally feminine, more petite-looking woman to play Wonder Woman, which I found interesting.
Kind of along these lines, I think it was John Scalzi, I can't remember his blog or something, where we're bringing in gender issues here. He says, life, he basically says, life is like a game. If you're a white male, you're playing it on easy. That's privilege. That's what privilege is. If you want to play it hard, if you want to play it on a harder level, be a black gay woman and see, how much more difficult things are. And I think that plays to everything. I mean, especially the gender issues here. So I just thought that was a good quote.
Joe, you're about ready to say something. No?
Me? No, not really. I mean, I think that this is something that I've been very curious about, just as it's been very interesting to see both sides of the argument about, say, like the Cheryl Sandberg movement that's come out over the last year. And the ways in which both men and women have reacted positively and negatively to that, and the different reactions that you see about the campaign about whether we should use the word bossy anymore, and how some people want to own that term, and some people want to ban that term, for lack of a better word. I find it. I have not read Lean In. We ordered it for the library, and I would mind to pick it up at some point and read it, because I am curious to see what she has to say and see, a lot of the magazines and columnists I read tend to kind of attack her from the left. I find it, so I'm curious to see what she has to say in my judgment about it. But I don't have an easy answer.
Well, backtracking a little bit to what you mentioned about, I don't know if a woman was aggressive in the workplace and the men would view her as scary, and I think that speaks to how powerful women are viewed, because, I mean, if a man was aggressive in the workplace, would the other men view him as scary, or would they view him as assertive, active, right? And so I think for women in power, it's kind of a tricky line to walk, because on the one hand, you're viewed as feminine, and that's not powerful. You're kind of weak, and you don't occupy the role of power. But then if you try to occupy that role, then you're viewed as scary, or bossy, or mean, and that's not how men who behave in the same way are viewed necessarily.
It seems to me, I was just going to say quickly that it seems to me that what has to happen is, as you guys have been saying, is put more women in those positions, get more women in those positions, because then it would be permissible for there to be a range of feminine personality types in the workplace. And until they see until the world, we all see different kinds of women, then we're going to think there's sort of only one kind of woman who can be in power. Whereas nobody says that a man has to be exactly, one particular sort of man in order to be your boss. There are a lot of qualities that, there's a range of sort of masculine personalities that occupy those positions, and I don't think anybody's looking at them going, that's not a very, that guy isn't, they might not be qualified for one reason or another, but that it's not because of their personality necessarily. Do you see what I'm saying? I think maybe we need a range.
I wanted to say, yeah, I agree, but at the same time, as I'm hearing you say, I'm remembering that NPR story, because I heard it as well, with the Women and Money series that's been running. And one of the things that they talked about in the story was that when women go to negotiate, of course, one, they're more ethical than men. They found that they're less likely to lie. Men are much more likely to lie to women, but women are also more likely to lie to women before they will lie to men. And so is it just that we need women in those positions, or do we need a different set of values that we might you know, we put the word feminine in front of them, and then I wonder what happens when we do that. What do we call feminine? What is feminism? What does it mean to be feminist? And do we do damage to the eventuality of those things even taking root by calling them feminine values? Because the word itself, I think, has it carries almost not a negative connotation in certain spheres, but it is immediately downplayed. Or I see a reaction to it when I say it. Sometimes people immediately write it off if you say that something is feminist.
Feminist or feminine? You mean feminist?
Both. Both, in fact. In classes I've seen, you know, you get labeled as feminist if you, for example, have a story with a strong female heroine. This happened to me several times. And yes, I actually am a feminist, but that's separate from us reading a story with a strong female character. But it's a way to make it less. That's the way in which that term is being used. So I wonder if you have a response to my long-winded.
So is the question, what's the question?
So my question then is, you were saying that we needed to see women in these roles.
Yeah.
If we saw more women in those roles, that would maybe create the change. My question is, do the women who get into those roles, because I was thinking about that idea of women who will lie to other women, do they get there because they adopt what we call masculine values and roles of power that are masculine, coded as masculine, and so then give up something that we would call feminine or feminist? And then I went into this thing about the word itself. Yeah.
I'm sure any of us could talk about that. I mean, I think there is a danger. I mean, certainly it's true if there are only a few women, they're going to have to play the game that's set, that's there. You know, that's why I guess I think numbers might be useful, because then the game might change. And I think it does change, although it doesn't have to be. See, this is interesting to me because you brought up Lean In, the Sheryl Sandberg book, and she's, you know, the CFO or something at Facebook, and she wrote this book in which she basically says women are socialized to be, you know, subordinate and should stand up for themselves, and I'm all on board. That's of course true. But it kind of drove me nuts that she wrote this book, because she is one of the very few women in America who could write a book that was actually about changing the culture of work. And she didn't write that book. She needs to write that book. I could write the book about how you have to play games and be, you know, in order to succeed and make sure you're nice and, you know, or play whatever game has to be played. But a lot of us could do that. But she's one of the very few people who's positioned so that she could actually make change that would make for a more equitable kind of work culture across gender lines and other lines. And she didn't write that book. So it drives me kind of nuts. And that, I think, is a roundabout way of saying there is a problem if the culture of the workplace rewards people who lie, or makes people feel, I mean, or you know, tells women that they can't have traditionally feminine values or bring those into the workplace. That's of course a huge problem if you can't bring, you know, consensus building rather than individualism or alongside individualism into the workplace. I don't know if that answered the question. And I was thinking about what you said about, I'll just quickly say about the feminism, you know, and the story. We should talk about how we construct our classes. And I actually have, I don't think I quite realized I was doing this, but in my own classes, you know, I don't hide the fact that I'm a feminist. But a lot of times if it's a class that doesn't have feminist in the title, you know, there's a way in which I'll teach a survey of modern American lit or something, and I'll sort of come out as a feminist in the middle. You know, they don't expect that I'm a feminist. I'm teaching a class, a lot of canonical texts. You know, I do teach them with a lot of attention to gender and class and racial issues and so on. But then I'll, you know, sort of partway through when they know that I'm married and have 2 little boys and all this stuff, that, you know, and then I'll start introducing, you know, the fact that I am myself a feminist and I care about feminism, and you ought to think about these, you don't have to be a feminist, but think about taking seriously, you know, gender issues. I've sort of, it's playing a game, but it is a way in which you can say to them, feminists are not scary necessarily, you know, they're just thinking hard.
Yes.
In your own opinion, what is a feminist person?
A feminist person? Well, for me, it would be someone who works toward kind of more just and equitable society on a lot of different grounds, but certainly on gender grounds. You know, that will raise questions like the ones raised by this film, you know, about, and the ones that you're raising in your class when you teach a, you know, a class or a story with a woman hero. So that's not a comprehensive definition, but in my own, that's how I would do it. I don't know, would you guys want to weigh in on that?
I think that pretty much covers it. I mean, that's kind of what the way I feel too.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
In our science fiction class, Bethany was in that, we were reading stories about male and female characters, you know, various people in charge and stuff like that. And I was thinking that this generation in particular that Bethany represents is more sensitive to gay marriage is okay, racism is stupid, and everything else, and yet there's still men are men and girls are girls, and there's still, we had some discussion about the pressure young women have to get married and do all these things, and boys don't right at that same age. And I'm wondering why that's still, and how many generations it would take for that to change. I just think it's strange. Is it the media that's helping perpetuate that wants to keep it going because it does sell stuff, or what? Because that conversation we had in class that day just kind of blew me away. It's like, this is the most progressive generation on so many levels, and yet they're still sticking to men are from Mars and women from Venus. I just don't get it.
Great question.
Puts Bethany on the spot, I guess.
I think that a lot of people just still believe that that's just the way people are, that they're just hardwired kind of to be that way. That, you know, well, I don't know why about like marriage. I don't know why people think. I guess people still think that women need to be taken care of, and so they need to get married younger. I don't know why.
Yes.
I'm not really sure if that's entirely like a problem, because I know I can't like point to the exact statistics of it, but I'm pretty sure like females across the board make better grades than males, and I'm also like knowing quite a few women and girls my age within my generation, like a lot of them, I probably know more girls that went to college than guys that went to college, honestly, from my high school at least. But I mean, that's anecdotal. I can't speak for everyone, of course, but anecdotal nonetheless, sort of relevant.
But
Well,
then the question,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
the question I will have is in the future, you know, like how many of the girls are going to be married when they're 25 and how many of the guys are going to be married when they're 25? Like I know people who are not even 25 and they're married, divorced, and they have kids. It's crazy.
Yeah, I know. I have a friend, he got married at 18.
But I don't know about statistics, whether it's...
Well, I think too, I mean, speaking to that, but we still, there are manly science, technology, engineering, and math, which I think is just crazy. I'm going to show some of my age here. There was a Barbie, what, was this back in the 80s?
I think I know.
Math class is tough.
Math is hard.
And that may have been the early 90s. But I mean, it's, you know, I don't have a math gene, okay? I really don't. I don't think any of us have math genes, but people have certain propensities for math, whether they're male or female, but we actively discourage girls, I think, from those STEM type classes, and I don't understand why. You know, historically, I mean, you've got female scientists, female astronomers, female physicists that have contributed greatly to, you know, scientific knowledge the world over, who are typically overlooked for, you know, the males that have made the big discoveries, apparently.
And who discourages women from those roles?
I think it's societal, don't you?
Yeah, if you think about like the people that, like the elite classes that basically perpetuate themselves and that kind of dictate what most of society does, they're male dominated, and they're the ones that put in the like the economic and the socioeconomic structures, and inherently they are just dominated by men, and therefore manly, masculine like traits. Like that goes back to the whole point on feminine, like females having to behave in a certain way to succeed, because they can't be themselves, because it's basically inherently expected that a male and male traits are what succeed because they were made by males for males, basically. That's how society is.
I wonder if boys are also pressured though to be a certain sort of masculine way.
I think that's also
Yeah. So it's not only a pressure exerted on females to behave a certain way either.
Well, that's one thing I've always thought is that whenever some women, some feminists say like women are being held back, are being pushed out of certain things, and I keep thinking to myself, what is this great bastion of male authority that stands defiance? Because it's like, everything I ever wanted to do as a kid, like I wanted to be in the military. There's women all over the military. I wanted to be an astronaut. There's women in space, there's women in NASA, there's women doing research. I wanted to be a writer. There's a lot of very successful women writers. J.K. Rowling is a millionaire.
Billionaire.
But there are,
Billionaire. It's like there's women in politics, there's women in Wall Street, so it's like.
I agree,
Hold
that's
on.
true.
Okay, so.
I was just gonna say there aren't as many as you maybe think there are. That's the problem. And there was another, interesting study that was, I heard about not too long ago, that showed that people tend to think, if the number stuck in my head because we have 17 women senators. There's 17 senators out of 100 senators. And the study showed that, and it wasn't because of this, but the study showed that if you show people more than 17, a crowd, with more than 17% of the crowd being women, then they think that it's 50-50. They think that there are as many women as men, and if it's a lot more than 17%, getting closer into 30 or 35%, they think there are more women than men. So there's a little bit of a problem of just an expectation that women, you can have women in those fields, but only a few women are really making it there. And there's a lot of complex reasons that is true, but I think it's partly tradition. I think it's people think that certain kinds of work is appropriate for girls and other kinds of work is appropriate for boys. And those messages come from a lot of places, from Mattel, from people's grandparents and parents, and from the media, and so religion.
Stephanie,
was that the same study? I have another comment, but was that the same study that talked about if women talked so many minutes more that they were attributed to have dominated the conversation?
No, but
like more than a little amount, and it was that they were dominating the conversation.
I didn't know
the same study.
It might be, but I haven't heard that. Yeah.
I think that if you look at Wonder Woman as sort of a canvas of culture, she's 70 plus years old now. And the movie talks about how it ebbed and flowed, what kind of character she was over that time. Just like in art, you have Rubenesque babes, you have all the way down to Twiggy, right, for body. Women in culture are often the canvas for which things are written on, whether we like it or not, on their bodies especially. If you see her as that, what I think is that this ebbs and flows, all this stuff we're talking about. First of all, that there'll be times when everything's gravy and we're all feminists, and then other times it'll just go backlash to who knows what. But what I find really great about the character of Wonder Woman is she's perfectly androgynous in a way. She has the masculine values with the feminine values, and that was early on, the early Wonder Woman. That it was justice, compassion, but more importantly and more interestingly, I think, she's a friend to women. And Linda Carter mentions it too. She said, not an enemy of men, but a friend to women. And I often think now, even now, and I'm of 3 sisters in my family, so I'm very comfortable in the feminine world, and I am a woman, but I also hang out with boys because I've been a tomboy my whole life. So I'm kind of in that zone with her, I think. But it seems like the most radical thing you can be now or any time is a friend to women, if you are a woman. And if you're a lesbian, it's almost a political act, which is what that guy picked up on the 50s code, right? Where he said, oh, because Wonder Woman likes women, they're taking care of them. These are lesbian undertones, and that's not in that. Really, if you look at it, she's just being their friend, but he's got that in his mind.
Remember what he said about Batman and Robin?
Did he say the same thing about them?
Yeah.
Was that the same guy?
That was the same guy.
Okay, so he's got issues, you see what I'm saying? but he's not the only one to see that or to say that about Wonder Woman. He's not the first, he may have been the first, but he's not the only one either.
Yes.
This is not a question, more like a discussion point. But I've noticed that I have a certain kind of hero that I like. I've always liked the person that does it with their wits. Like Sherlock Holmes, the Doctor, Batman. And I've noticed there's not as many women that do the same thing. You look at Wonder Woman, you look at Xena, you look at Sarah Connor. It's like they do it with their fists and they do it with their guns. It doesn't seem as many female characters that do it with their wits.
There's an entire project called the Misrepresentation Project, and one of the signature questions they ask is, where are the female nerds? Where are the women intellectuals in our society? Where are they?